Welcome, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're taking a look at Hugh Howey's Silo series, and it looks like you've given us wool, shift, and dust as source material.
Definitely a lot to cover.
Definitely. We're going to be exploring the parallels between the silo world and our own. Think about it. A society living underground in this massive silo, completely cut off, believing the outside world is toxic. It's a chilling thought.
Chilling and I think strangely familiar in some ways, don't you think?
Right. So, let's dive in. We're going to explore the psychological impact of isolation, the struggle between freedom and security, and the possibility that we might be blind to some pretty big truths about the world around us.
So many big questions packed into these books.
So true. What makes the Silo series so fascinating is that it forces us to confront these questions head on. It's not just some dystopian thriller. It's like holding a mirror up to our own anxieties, our own vulnerabilities.
Like, could this be us?
Exactly. One of the most striking parallels is how the Silo series explores the psychological effects of isolation. In Silo 1, there's this character, Troy. He's the one who has to compile these reports after silo disasters.
And they take him off his medications so he can really experience the grief.
It's brutal. It makes you think about how the silo, in its attempt to control everything, even tries to regulate or suppress natural human emotions.
No, and that connects to our own world. We're supposedly more connected than ever in the digital age, but, think about it. Rates of depression and anxiety are through the roof.
It makes you wonder, are our digital connections really a substitute for real, genuine human interaction? Are we just isolating ourselves even further?
I think the Silo series suggests that tree connection, real connection, it requires vulnerability, shared experiences, the freedom to actually express the full range of human emotions.
And that's something the silo inhabitants are basically discouraged from doing, right?
Right.
They're under constant surveillance. Strict rules govern every aspect of their lives,
Yeah.
all justified in the name of survival.
Right. And Howie gives us some vivid examples of this, like the cleaning ritual.
Sending people out to clean the sensors knowing they'll die.
Horrifying, but it raises a huge question for us. How much freedom are we willing to sacrifice for a sense of security? How much are we willing to give up?
It's a question we're grappling with constantly, even in our own society.
Absolutely. Think about the debates about data privacy, government surveillance, the trade-offs we make between safety and personal liberty.
The Silo series really forces us to examine those trade-offs closely. The potential consequences of giving up too much control, even in the name of safety.
Yeah. And it's not just about physical freedom, it's about freedom of thought, freedom of information. Think about how the silo controls information, manipulating historical records, erasing them.
Like the way the silo inhabitants are led to believe the outside world is toxic. It makes you wonder, what truths are we clinging to that might be based on, incomplete or even fabricated information?
I mean, we often rely on authorities or echo chambers to shape our worldview. We don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught in those echo chambers, especially online. We surround ourselves with information that just reinforces what we already believe. Anything that challenges our beliefs, we tend to shut it out.
Exactly what the silo authorities do. Limit access to information, discourage critical thinking, maintain control.
It works, for the most part.
Yeah.
But there are these cracks in the system,
Right.
these characters who start to question the narrative. They dare to seek the truth.
Absolutely. And those characters represent hope and resistance.
Yep.
Holston, for example, with his investigation into past uprisings.
And Juliet, relentlessly pursuing the truth about the outside world, even at great risk to themselves.
They remind us, even in the most oppressive systems, there are those who challenge the status quo.
It's inspiring. They're like little glimmers of light in this very dark world. And their stories highlight how important it is to question, to seek knowledge, to fight for what you believe in, even when it's dangerous.
Their courage is contagious.
It's like they're saying, don't just accept things the way they are. Push back, question everything, demand the truth.
Yeah.
And these characters, they actually achieve some pretty incredible things. It makes you wonder what we could accomplish if we dared to question the narratives we're given and really fought for something better.
It's a powerful message and something I think we can all take away from the Silo series.
Absolutely. But before we get carried away, maybe we should take a closer look at the specific ways that the Silo Society manipulates and controls its citizens.
Right.
I'm interested in those subtle ways they maintain control.
Yeah.
It's not always about brute force. It's often about this subtle manipulation.
Exactly. And that's why this series is so relevant to our own lives. We might not live in a giant underground bunker, but we're constantly being bombarded with messages, nudged in certain directions, influenced by forces we may not even be aware of.
Okay, so let's talk about these subtle forms of control. What are some of the things that stand out to you?
Well, let's start with the silos approach to relationships and family.
You mean the limited births, the fact that you have to apply for permission to be together.
Exactly. On the surface, it seems like a practical measure for population control. But it's also a way to control people's emotions, their desires.
Because if you're constantly worried about basic survival, you know, about getting permission to start a family, you're less likely to focus on the bigger picture, less likely to question the nature of your reality.
You're distracted, preoccupied with the immediate rather than questioning the larger structures of power.
It's a bit like that saying, keep them fed and entertained and they won't notice what's really going on.
Exactly. And this ties into another aspect of the silo's control, the power of ritual and tradition.
Ah, like the cleaning ritual, the way they make a spectacle out of death. Terrifying, but it also brings them together.
It reinforces their narrative, the supposed danger of the outside world, the necessity of the silo's rules and rituals.
Yeah, a constant reminder. Stepping out of line could mean death. And it's not just the big rituals like the cleaning, it's the smaller things too.
The daily routines, the gatherings in the cafeteria.
Even the way information is disseminated through official channels.
Yeah.
It all creates this sense of order, of predictability.
Which makes it harder to imagine anything different, right? Harder to conceive of a world outside the silo's rigid structure.
It's like a prison for the mind.
And that leads us to another key aspect of the silo's control, the manipulation of belief systems. I mean, they control information, sure, but they also rely on the citizens' belief in this system.
Their acceptance of the narrative that the outside world is toxic.
Yeah.
It's amazing how ingrained that belief is. Most people don't question it until they see evidence to the contrary.
And then what? What do you do with that information? It makes you wonder, what beliefs do we hold that might be limiting our understanding of the world? Things we haven't even thought about questioning.
Are we all living in metaphorical silos of our own, limited by our own beliefs and assumptions?
It's possible. But the good news is, unlike the silo inhabitants, we actually have the potential to break free from those limitations.
Right. I mean, we have access to more information than ever before, such a diversity of perspectives.
The challenge is, are we willing to be discerning, to question our own biases, to seek out information that challenges our assumptions?
So it sounds like we've found some pretty strong parallels between the silo world and our own.
Yeah.
But even with all these mechanisms of control, we've also seen those glimmers of hope. Individuals who dare to resist, who fight for truth and freedom.
Absolutely. And they remind us that even in the most oppressive systems, the human spirit can't be completely extinguished. There's always that potential for resistance, for change, for hope.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about isolation, control, manipulation. But as we've seen, there's always that potential for resistance, for change.
And in the next part, we're going to delve even deeper into that world.
We'll look at those who challenge the status quo, the challenges they face, the choices they make, the impact their actions have on the fate of the silo and its inhabitants.
Welcome back. It's been quite a journey so far, exploring all these parallels between Hugh Howey's Silo series and our own world.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of heavy stuff. Isolation, control, the suppression of truth. It's a lot to take in. But I'm really drawn to that thread of hope and resistance that runs through it all.
Exactly. And that's where I think we should pick up. We talked about the systems of control in the silo, but what about those individuals who push back, who challenge those systems?
Yes, let's dive into that.
Yeah.
We've already mentioned Holston and Juliet, but their stories are so fascinating. They both embody this spirit of defiance, of questioning the world they're given.
Holston, the sheriff in Wool, he starts off seeming pretty content, actually. Like, he's okay with his place in the silo until he finds that box of relics from a previous sheriff. And then that sparks something in him.
That box is like a window into this hidden past.
Mm-hmm.
It makes him question everything he thought he knew about the silo's history.
And he starts down this dangerous path of investigation, digging into past uprisings, challenging those official narratives he's been fed his whole life.
It ultimately costs him his life, right? He chooses to clean the censors, even though he knows the truth about the outside.
It's tragic, but it's also such a powerful act of defiance. Like, he refuses to be complicit in the silo's lies.
And then there's Juliet, the mechanic from down deep. her journey is even more incredible. She goes from, fixing generators to leading this rebellion.
I think her story really highlights the power of a single person to make a difference. She starts out just trying to survive, trying to protect the people she cares about, but then she becomes this symbol of hope for everyone in the silo.
She's so resourceful, resilient,
Mm.
refuses to back down, even when she's facing these impossible obstacles. It's really inspiring to watch her transform into this leader.
What I find interesting is her leadership isn't about force or manipulation. It's about inspiring people, connecting with them on a human level, reminding them of their shared humanity.
Such a stark contrast to the silo authorities who just view people as data points, problems to manage.
Juliet, though, she sees individuals. She values their lives, their experiences, their dreams, and that's what makes her such an effective leader.
It's like she's reminding everyone they're not just cogs in this machine. They're human beings
Mhm.
with the power to choose, to resist, to fight for a different future.
Exactly. And her journey shows that even in the most hopeless of situations, facing those insurmountable odds, one person can spark change.
It's a powerful message. And it makes me think about all those smaller acts of resistance that we see throughout the series. It's not always the big dramatic moments. It's the people who whisper forbidden knowledge, protect hidden relics, who just hold on to hope.
Those smaller acts are vital. They chip away at the foundation of the silo's control. They show that the human spirit, you can't just crush it completely.
It's like that saying, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds.
I love that. That really captures that resilience, the hope that runs through these books. But resistance has a cost. It's dangerous, it's risky, it often leads to loss and suffering.
Absolutely. There's a real sense of tragedy woven into the stories. Many of the characters who challenge things end up paying a terrible price.
It's a harsh truth. Fighting for truth and freedom, for a better world, it often involves sacrifice.
But I think the series also suggests that these sacrifices are worth it, that the fight for a just world, for a better world, it's a fight worth having, even if it means facing hardship and loss along the way.
Right. And it's not just about individual sacrifice, it's about collective action. One person can make a difference, but real lasting change happens when people work together, support each other, build a movement.
That's key, isn't it? The silo might be this dark, dystopian future, but there's this message of hope, this blueprint for resistance, and it feels so relevant to our own world.
Absolutely, it reminds us. Even facing immense power, even when the odds seem stacked against us, we have that power to resist, to fight for what we believe in, to create something better.
It's a reminder that we're not powerless. We have agency, we have a voice, and we have a responsibility to use them.
And sometimes that means questioning the narratives we're given, challenging those in authority, demanding accountability.
So I think we found some really important lessons about resistance in the Silo series. But before we wrap up this part, I want to touch on one more thing that's always stuck with me, the role of technology.
Yeah, technology is such a double-edged sword in the silo.
Exactly. It's a tool of oppression, but also potentially a source of liberation. You have the servers in IT. They're used to monitor and control the inhabitants. But those same servers hold the key to the truth about the outside world.
And what about the cleaning suit? The very symbol of the silo's control. A reminder of how dangerous the outside supposedly is. But it's also how Juliet escapes, how she discovers the truth.
That image is so powerful. The moment she steps outside for the first time, it's like she's breaking free from those physical and mental constraints of the silo.
Makes you think about our own relationship with technology, doesn't it? Are we using it to empower ourselves, to connect with each other, to learn and grow? Or are we becoming more and more dependent, even enslaved by it?
It's a question we all need to ask ourselves, especially as technology keeps it advancing so quickly.
Right. We can't just blindly embrace new technologies without thinking about the consequences, good and bad.
We need to be mindful, critical, and proactive in how we shape how technology is developed and used.
We have the power to decide. Will technology serve humanity, or will it control us?
So, as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I think we need to explore this further. What does the Silo series tell us about technology, power, and the future of humanity?
That's the big question. I think the answers are complex, for sure.
Well, I'm ready to unpack them. I'm eager to see what we can learn from the Silo's world that might help us understand our own. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Silo series. We've been talking about some pretty heavy stuff. Isolation, control, the fight for truth and freedom. But there's one thing we haven't really dug into yet that I find super intriguing. The Silo's purpose. Like, why was it built in the first place?
That's the big question, isn't it? It hangs over the whole series. Why build these silos? What's their ultimate goal?
Right. I mean, we get hints along the way, but it's not until dusk that we really start to understand. Remember when Juliet finds those messages, the hidden ones?
Yeah.
And she realizes that the silo is just part of this huge experiment.
Oh, yeah. And that map, all those other silos, all pointing to the central location labeled seed, it totally changes how we see everything.
Totally. What is the seed? A place, but some kind of technology, a plan for the future. And who are these founders who set it all in motion? Are they good? Bad? How he drops this bombshell on us and then just leaves us hanging, you know?
It's masterful. He forces us to deal with the fact that we don't have all the answers, that the world, well, it's a messy place.
And it makes you question everything about the silo, the people living in it. Are they
Wow.
victims, survivors, or something else entirely? Pawns in this game, they don't even know they're playing.
It's a lot to process, and that's what makes the series so gripping, you know? It doesn't give you easy answers, simple solutions. It makes you think, makes you question your assumptions, confront these really uncomfortable truths about power and how it's used.
Like, hey, here's a peek behind the curtain. Now what are you going to do?
Exactly. And that's a challenge we face in our own lives, too. We're hit with so much information, so many stories that contradict each other, all these different claims about what's true. How do we sift through all that and find our own path?
That's tough. But I think the Silo series gives us some clues. It reminds us that the truth is hard to find. The stories we're told are often incomplete, and sometimes we got to fight to find our own answers.
It really emphasizes critical thinking, you know, questioning authority, being willing to go against the grain.
Sometimes the most important truths, they're the ones that are hidden, the ones we have to really dig for.
So we're nearing the end of our deep dive into the Silo series. What are some of the big things that you're taking away from all this? What sticks with you?
For me, it's the power of the human spirit. Even in the face of oppression, control, despair, there's always hope, always resistance. The people in the silo, they remind us that we're not powerless. We can fight for what we believe in, even when it seems impossible.
That's a great point. And it connects to another theme that really hit me, the need for connection. Even in that isolated, controlled world of the silo, people find ways to connect, to build relationships, communities. And that's what gives them the strength to resist, to hope, to dream of something different.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to be alone. We need each other. And that feels so relevant now, when we're all so connected online, but can feel so disconnected in our daily lives.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap this up, if we could leave our listener with one last thing to think about, what would it be?
How about this? If you found out that the world you thought you knew was a lie, would you have the courage to break free? To search for the truth, even if it meant losing everything?
Whoa, that's a heavy one. It's a real challenge to look at our own beliefs, to question the systems we're a part of, to think about what we'd be willing to give up for the sake of truth and freedom.
And remember, the search for knowledge, for understanding, it never ends. There's always more to learn, to explore, to discover.
So to everyone listening, keep asking those questions. Keep exploring. Never stop looking for the truth, no matter how deep you have to dive.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the Silo series. It's been a wild ride, and I think we'll all be chewing on these ideas for a while to come.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and open to new possibilities.